You're listening to episode 196 of The Secular Buddhist. Welcome to The Secular Buddhist. I'm Ted Meissner. The Secular Buddhist is the official podcast of the Secular Buddhist Association, a grassroots-driven effort to answer the needs of secular teaching and practice for contemporary society. The podcast has interviews and roundtable discussions pertaining to engaged Buddhist training and practice, and the SBA website has show notes for each episode along with resource materials. Though the podcast focuses on core practice from a secular viewpoint, more traditional teachings are welcome and openly discussed. Ramsey Margolis joins us once more to speak about his exploration of what it's like to give up just one thing each month for a year. A big part of Buddhism is the concept of letting go, and we often use that in the context of our mental formations. But it's not just that. Letting go is also about any kind of attachment we may have. Putting that into practice, however, can be difficult in our culture so firmly entrenched in material gain. Ramsey Margolis started a sitting group in 1999, which developed into Wellington Insight Meditation Community. A secular Buddhist practitioner since the late 1990s, he claims two passions in life, apart from his lovely wife: good food and the printed word. Ramsey's intention is to help create a culture of generosity. So, sit back, relax, and have a nice Don Wilfredo Espresso from People's Coffee in New Zealand. Our guest today is Ramsey Margolis. Ramsey, good to speak with you again.
Yes, thank you, Ted. Hello.
So the last time you joined us for the podcast was for episode 123 on the development of secular Buddhism community in New Zealand. A lot of things have happened since then. Give us an update about that before we go on to today's main topic.
Okay, well, tell me how long ago that was. Give me a rough idea.
Goodness, probably about 9-10 months ago.
Well, yes, what's happening in New Zealand? We have a website that's secularbuddhism.org.nz, which I put up a couple of years ago. A lot of people have been getting in touch with me from all around the country, most of them asking, is there something going on in my town? What's happening locally? What is this secular Buddhism and who's doing it around here? And of course, I have to say that I can help you start something up, and I have done that on a couple of occasions. But most people just want to find out what it's about. So in Auckland, we've got a group that's now been going for a couple of years. They send out an email to their 20 people on their mailing list. And I haven't spoken to them for a while, but I reckon they probably get between 7 and 10 or 7 and 12 to a Saturday morning sitting group session. Vibrant, interesting little community. Here in Wellington is the other group, which is the group which I run, and that group's now in its third year. It didn't start off specifically as a secular Buddhist group, but it kind of was really. It started off as my wife asking me to teach her meditation and some of her girlfriends' meditation too. And then it grew into a few other people getting interested, and as people dropped out and others came along, I'd say we've got a core of about 8, of whom maybe 7 out of the 8 come every week. Out of the different ones will be there, and a periphery of about an extra 4 or 5 people who just come along occasionally or who are interested. And what's interesting about the group here in Wellington is that we were just talking about meditation, and it took about 6 months before someone actually said, well, what is this Buddhism lark all about? And I thought, oh my God, I don't have to just share what it is to meditate. I have to start talking about Buddhism. I thought, oh goodness me, I'm not a teacher, I thought to myself. I don't want to be a teacher. I know what teachers are like. I don't want to be one of them. So what happened is that I started talking about Buddhism, and I quickly realized that for most people, the ism was very much a secondary part. What they were interested in was the practice. So we have been focusing on the practice a lot more, but when you do practice, the more you practice, and a lot of these people have been coming along for a couple of years, you do go quite deeply into it, and you get your own understanding of what Buddhism is teaching us. And it's really interesting. And more recently, I realized that the group was aware of secularbuddhism.org.nz, but didn't identify with it that much. So I put up a new website for our Wellington group, which addresses simplymeditation.org.nz, or NZ as you say it. And it really is just a single page with a very brief description talking about where the group meets, that it's silent meditation, that people are welcome, that we're aiming to create an environment that fosters stillness, silence, and attentiveness, with very brief basic meditation instructions if anybody's a beginner. And going on talks about simplicity, that it's a secular approach, a very simple approach. We'd welcome people if they're new to the practice or if they want to just deepen their practice. And very important to say that there's no charge. It doesn't cost anything. It's only in our living room, so we can fit everybody in quite comfortably. There's no charge, no appointment needed, just turn up. There's an amazing number of people who write and say, is it all right if I come along? And you just say, yes, just turn up. Yes, please just turn up. So I'd say the group here is going very nicely. People are enjoying it. And one thing I think I mentioned to you before is that we're talking about organizing a film festival.
Yes, tell us about that.
Okay. Well, one of the guys who comes along works at something called the Film Archive, which is the New Zealand National Archive of Films and that kind of thing. He came up with this idea of running a week of films, which could be a secular Buddhist film festival, but we came up with this notion that it would be the kind of films that someone who's interested in a secular approach to Buddhism might find nourishing. So we're just thinking of films like, for example, Integrate Silence, which is the film set around a Cistercian or Franciscan monastery in the Alps, which is just wonderful. Very little dialogue because they're always in silence. It tells a story by showing it. It's just delightful. And we've got a local nun who's been gardening for a long time as part of her practice. And so there's just a film that's recently came out called Gardening with Soul. So that's the kind of thing we're putting in. And perhaps the Dutch documentary about Stephen Batchelor and his work. So there'll be a mixture of films. We're not, we haven't set it anything in stone, but we're working towards this film festival happening in September. I guess the theme of the group here in Wellington is we're busking, we're improvising. Nothing's been done like this before. We've got no model to follow. We've got no pattern to follow. We've got no program that someone somewhere in America or in Asia has devised as being the proper program. And
you have no box to keep you in.
That's right. We're just doing our thing here and we're just seeing what happens. Now, this isn't meant to be disrespectful to all the other traditions. It's just simply what feels right and what feels comfortable. And a lot of people have a great fear of religious organizations, that they're going to be cult-like, they're going to suck them in, that they're going to take 10% of their income and all those kinds of things. And those are the kind of fears that we're having to deal with. And talking on that, interestingly, there's a very good friend of mine who came along to what was then the Wellington Insight group that I was running 10, 12 years ago. And he came along, like the proverbial dog with a tail between his legs. He was a bit scared. He didn't know what he was going to find. He knew that meditation was going to be beneficial because he's having a terrible time at work at the time. And he just came out and he found it was very open and welcoming, and there was nothing to believe. Here's the practice. And we became very strong personal friends. Now, he's gone through several incarnations of his work life. And he's just recently given up being a business coach, or he still does some of that, and he's becoming a meditation teacher. So he's now running commercial meditation courses here in Wellington and offering them for, I'm not sure, it's $75 for a 4-session, very basic introduction. Just, again, he's looking for people, and he says there are lots of people who are like how he used to be, scared of it, but they know they want to do it. They're not interested in the religious side. They're not interested in the ism. They want to know what the practice is about. They want to be able to dip their toes in the water and see if it's suitable for them. And he's making a living. Not a big one, but he's making a living. And one of the things he does is he recommends people to come along to our group when they've finished, because he doesn't want to run a regular, ongoing group.
Yeah, that's always one of the challenges. Once you've been through a program, whatever program it is, then where do you go for the ongoing meditation practice?
I agree. Whatever next is the question I always ask at the end of a course. Whatever next, what are you going to do? And, some people carry on with the practice and other people it's just too difficult. They haven't got, as Henepola Gunaratna's ghostwriter put it in that wonderful book, Mindfulness in Plain English, they haven't got the gumption.
Yeah, it's Bhante G for those of you who are going, who?
So that's our group here in Wellington. There's another group in Alexandra, which is in the South Island, which, again, this was somebody who wrote to me, I like your website, it looks good. How can I get a group off the ground here in Alexandra? And his main concern was, if he starts a group, how would he deal with people who came along who are weirdos?
We're all weirdos.
Yeah, well, how would you deal with all the freaks and the weirdos and the people who just wanted sort of to light candles and incense and bow and scrape and whatever else they had to do, and who had strange beliefs and they wanted everybody else to believe what they believe? And I just said, well, just go ahead and do it, see who turns up. And he described it originally as a secular approach to. Now, Alexandra, let me tell you, has a population of 5,000. And in the region close by, there's maybe another 10,000. Now, he started that group towards the end of last year, and I just got a text from him which said that they get 7 to 8 people come along each week on a Monday, I think it is. And there's about 16 of them who are part of the community who pop in from time to time. Now, I'm just thinking, if a small town with 5,000 people can get a group that's just about as big as the one we have here in Wellington, with our, 150,000 people, the capital city, then anywhere in America, anywhere in the world, you could probably set up if you've got a community of 5,000, you've got a viable place to start a small sitting group.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And we tried to put out some resources for people to start their own groups using tools like Meetup and other ones that will bring people in, because we just don't know that the group next to us in the coffee shop, there may be 5 people right there who'd be interested in having a group to practice with.
Well, in terms of building a group, I mean, there is a Meetup. It does exist here in Wellington and in New Zealand, but it's not big as far as I can see. What I do is I publicize our Wellington group in 2 places and only 2 places. The first is the local library. That's not the Wellington Central Library, but the local library here in Kilbirnie. So it's walking distance from the house. And the second one is in the organic shop, which is local to here. Now, I've tried coffee shops. I've tried all kinds of things over the past 12, 15 years to publicize meditation groups. And those are the only 2 which work. I'm serious. I've tried everywhere. I've tried all kinds of things. And I guess those are the kind of places where people who want to meditate are likely to be found.
You've also been having conversations ongoing with our friend Bernard Font. Tell us a little bit about that, too.
Bernard Font lived. His home was in Barcelona. He's a wonderful, wonderful jazz pianist. And if anybody likes piano jazz, I really urge them to go and look at his YouTube channel and watch him play. And buy a couple of his CDs. He's got 2 CDs. He's very, very good.
I've linked a couple of those on his episode page, so folks can look that up. Bernard's been on the podcast as well.
Okay. Bernard has recently he left to go on a world trip, and he's been in India. He's been in Burma, where he just did a 3-month, or was it 1 month retreat with U Tejaniya. He's now in Bangkok, and he's heading for, as far as I know, he's heading for Tibet and China. And eventually he'll go home. Now, Bernard put up a Spanish language secular Buddhist website.
Yep, and we have that linked on his episode page. Yep, it's on our partner sites.
So while he was putting up that site, he and I started corresponding about websites, what to do, how they worked. I mean, not that he didn't know, but we were just exchanging ideas. about how to grow a community through a website, and the fact that with a Spanish language website, you're looking at a multi-country community, South America as much as Spain. In fact, he's not a Spanish, he is a Spanish speaker, but he's a Catalan speaker from Barcelona. And we've just become, I'd say, quite good friends, even though we've never met, which is a strange thing for me, I must say. Online only friends, should we say. And we've been talking as he's been traveling around the world. He's done a couple of interviews, which he and I worked on the questions to begin with. And he's got a few more interviews in the pipeline. Interviews with Buddhists in Asia, including one Englishman who used to be a Western Buddhist order member who's now an ordained Tibetan-style monk. On secularbuddhism.org.nz in the blog, you'll find his interviews, and they're very interesting. So he tries to approach them with their current practice and ask them, how does that relate to us in the 21st century and what you're doing, and what's the relevance of it and how important, what can we learn from it? They're very interesting interviews. He's got a few more, he's half done or in the pipeline. And it's very interesting because there seems to be a number of people around the world who are interested in secular Buddhism. And if you approach them, which I have been approaching a couple of them sometimes to say hello or ask them questions about their website or their movement to put something onto the Book New Zealand site. I think it's important for people in New Zealand to know that it's not just happening here, and this isn't the only place, and there's more to it than what's happening in their town or their country. It's a global kind of tendency, I suppose is the right word, that people are tending to think this way. Although we might have formally put the label on as secular and Buddhist, other people probably haven't got that label. But it doesn't mean that they're any different, or that that we're going towards a similar end, but we just use different language.
So let's shift gears a little bit. The topic of what we're here to talk about is your year of living without. Tell us the background. What is it? What led you to it?
So I had to think about that a lot. So where on earth? Because I stole the idea from somebody else. I'll be quite blunt. It's not my original idea, and I can't remember who or where. But I think I probably got it from a LinkedIn newsletter. It's that stuff they kind of throw at you all the time. Things that people in businesses ought to know about, and glance down the list. No. Oh, what's this? Year of living without. That's interesting. So I had a look at it, and I just loved the idea. I just thought that's fabulous, because you see, the thing is, I've been working in a job for the past 7 years, and that job came to an end at the end of November last year. The office closed down. They moved it to Auckland, which is 600 kilometres away, and I wasn't prepared to move with the job. So I thought, I've done it 7 years. I've done it, given it a really good go. The organisation's changed completely. It's fantastic. Time for me to move on. So I was really happy. It sounds funny to be really happy that you're losing a job with a good income, but it was time to move on. So as I was moving on and kind of recreating my way of earning an income, which I'm still working on, believe me, I decided I wanted to do something wildly different at the same time, because it just occurred to me that I'd get to work at 8:30, 8:45. I'd grab myself a cup of tea, sit down at the computer. Next thing I knew, it was 1 o'clock when my administrative assistant would come on. She worked in the afternoons. And she said, "Would you want a cup of tea? Do you want another cup of tea?" So I said, "Okay." And I had my second cup of the tea of the day. And by 2 o'clock, I just realized I hadn't moved. I've been sat there for ages. My back was stiff. My legs were sore. And I just thought, well, this is a great idea, this year of living without. And the first one that the guy had was not sitting for more than half an hour. And I thought, well, that's exactly what I need to do. So that hooked me in straight away. I realized the idea of living without. And I just thought, it's coming up for January now. It was December when I discovered it. People normally put out these New Year's resolutions. On the 1st January, there's 10 things I'm not going to do, or I'm going to do. And by the 10th of the month, you've forgotten all of them. And the nice thing about this idea of the year of living without is that I've chosen 12 things or 12 facets of my life I want to live without for 1 month, and 1 month only. And each month of 2014, I've got a different thing that I want to live without. The idea being at the end of the month, I will reassess the situation and say, is this something I'm really happy to carry on in my present habit? Because the idea is about habits. It's about changing a habit. So if I'm going to give up one habit, like sitting for more than 30 minutes at a time, I'm going to spend a month examining what I've done, and then next say, well, am I happy with not sitting with more than 30 minutes, or do I want to just go back to flopping in my chair and sitting in there for 6 hours and getting probably sicker and sicker or whatever? So that's the general idea. So the first month was actually, it was easy, but it was difficult in a funny sort of way. It was easy to know that was the right thing to do. But I kind of realized that if I go to the movies and there's a 90-minute film, I'm not going to stand up after 30 minutes and say, excuse me, to the people behind. I just had to stretch a bit, and then sit down again. I refined it a bit more. I also had some people come over for dinner one night, and, much as I was happy sitting around chatting with them, I thought, well, your glass of water is empty. Let me go and get some fresh water. So I had to get up and get some fresh water. And then at some point we were talking about music, and I said, well, you remember that old-fashioned thing called LPs? Well, I've got an LP of a Norwegian LP of tango music from the 40s and 50s you might be interested in. So you had to get up and move around, and they didn't notice that I wasn't sitting for more than 30 minutes. So you can be very creative about the process of the whatever it is that you're giving up. But you don't have to follow it all on exactly. So my replacement habits for the year was stretching and going for a walk with a notepad and a pen. Because obviously when I'm sitting at the computer, I'm doing a lot of thinking and writing. And that's often, so often going for a walk with a notepad and pen was very useful. Stretching, well, that was me realizing I needed to do that. So I've started doing a bit of stretching. I could do more, but it's good for a start. So I remember one afternoon, I printed out I was writing an article for a farming publication in the South Island, and I printed it out and I walked it to a cafe, and I sat and had a cup of tea, and I covered it with red ink and walked it back. And that was just as good as sitting in front of a computer screen and working with it. Now, the second month, which is February, is more problematic for others than it is for me. I've given up coffee for the month of February. And people are saying to me, are you mad? Partly because coffee is enjoyable and they can't give it up. And also your listeners are going to jump up their seat and smash their computers now. But it is said that the best coffee in the world is made in Wellington. There's a coffee culture here of baristas and all that kind of thing. I know people in Melbourne think theirs is better, but there are some very good coffee shops here who really take pride in the quality of their coffee. So, for example, you can get organic coffee almost everywhere. They pride on the fact that it's grown in the shade, it's bought from a cooperative at fair trade prices, all that kind of thing. So they very much roast them and make good coffee.
What's your favorite brand of coffee? What kind?
That's interesting. People's Coffee.
People's Coffee.
People's Coffee, they're a small roastery not far from here in Newtown in Wellington, and they have a wonderful website, very funky. They make a point of only buying from cooperatives. It's all shade grown, it's organic, and I'm hoping to work with them to create a charitable foundation that will enable people to help develop those cooperatives. So for me, I was going to replace it with lemon tea, and that proved a bit of a problem, as I realized, because lemons in New Zealand are far, far sweeter than lemons that we used to buy in Europe. Here we have a kind of lemon that's called the Maya lemon, and it's really, really sweet. So when you have a cup of tea, the idea used to be, I come from an East European family. My grandparents all came from the Ukraine. They used to drink tea with lemon, and they put a sugar cube in their mouth, in between the same place in the mouth, so they all the grandparents, all the old folk, had 4 teeth missing where they had their sugar cubes. And that lemon would take the sharpness off the tea, the tannin away from the tea. Here, it just puts sugar in. So I had a headache for half an hour from giving up coffee, because I only drink maybe 2 or 3 a week. It was no big deal. But chamomile tea in cafes is just stale, and it's not very nice. Hot chocolate, unbearably sweet. And the sugary cold drinks aren't very good for you. So finding a replacement has not been that easy, but I'm sticking with the lemon tea. Next month, I should be giving up buying new things. Let me just go through a list. So March is buying new things. April, I'm giving up gossip. In May, I'm giving up computer and internet in the morning, except to write something. It's all offline. June, I'm going to be giving up refined carbohydrates. July, now this is going to be the really, really hard one for me, Sudoku. I just get into it. This whole program has 2 sides for me. One is the Buddhist part, or a secular Buddhist part, which is about our addictions, the way we hold on to things and push things away, our patterns of behavior. So living without something for a month enables me to look at my feelings about something. I walked past a coffee shop this month. I go, no, I don't really need a coffee, but it would be nice to sit in there and smell it and actually like the taste of it. But I can let go. That's fine for them. Whereas Sudoku is really a very strong kind of, if something's difficult, right, get out of Sudoku, get your brain into that and don't deal with a difficult thing. It's that kind of thing. At the same time, it's pleasurable. August is going to be sugar. I eat too many biscuits with cookies, you call them. Lollies, I don't know what you call the lollies in America, sweets. So I'm going to try not to eat sugary things and replace them with fruit and veggies. September, I'm going to be using my mobile phone only for phone calls. So I won't be checking emails on it, sending texts or anything. I shall be, if I see a text, I'll phone that person back.
Angry Birds is right out.
Oh, I don't even know what it is. I haven't got my phone, I can assure you. I'm too old for that kind of thing, sorry. Again, I'll print my diary and carry it around with me rather than have it on the phone. Well, if I've got my laptop, I'll have that on it. October, I'm going to be giving up cafes. Now, there's a synergy there. To lose a bit of weight, if I don't eat at cafes, I have to think more carefully about what I eat in lunchtime. So that's that one. So I'm going to be making sandwiches and cooking. Now, November's video entertainment. So that's not too hard. I gave up watching TV as a teenager. And occasionally I watch things maybe on Vimeo or YouTube, but not that much. So it just means really not watching the DVDs that friends sort of lend to us. And that will be good. But so my replacement habit will be to talk with my wife, to spin, to play dominoes, to read books, and to just talk to people in general. And December, I'm going to be giving up the computer completely. So if I've got any posts to do, either on my blog, and I'm blogging about this, by the way, on my website, which is at ramseymargolis.com. You click on the first capital R, and that will take you to the blog. I know it's cheating, but I'll probably get Despina to post the blogs for me. So that's the idea of going through it for once a month, one item a month, to give up a habit and replace it with something else, just to watch how the year unfolds and to blog about it. And again, why am I doing this? Well as having just given up the job, I have to think, this group that comes along on a Wednesday night, we need to deepen our understanding of the ideas of Mr. Gautama, the Buddha. Now, we can do that in a number of ways. We can go to the old texts, we can study suttas, we can do all kinds of things. I'm sure that's very valuable. It doesn't kind of suit the people who come along here, though. So what I'm trying to do, and this is just an experiment, is to find a way of raising the ideas of the Buddha in ways that engage people in their own lives. And what I've said to the people is that, look, this is what I'm doing. Please don't copy this. What I'm saying is adapt it. Don't adopt it. Make it work for you. So one of the Wednesday night people who comes along said that she's just changed her radio station. She used to listen to, I think it's a pop station called ZMFM every day, all day, every day. So what she's done for her month of January is that she's switched off ZMFM, which she's been listening to for years, and she's been looking for other radio stations. And she said it's been fabulous. She's discovered music that she hadn't heard before, and she really likes music that doesn't have lyrics, she's decided. It's about changing habits, and that gives us a sense that we can change the habits that we have, that we're not stuck in ruts. So that's one part. I engaged the group. And one thing I did was that I've printed the invitation. Now, I emailed you an invitation. You're one of 10 people who are almost all overseas who I emailed the invitation to. I've taken 40 around town, and I've given them to people personally, saying, I've got an invitation for you. And when you take out the envelope, you just see the top half of the first page, which is the invitation. And people are really chuffed by that personal connection. So it's a journey I'm going on during 2014. I'd like you to come on the journey with me. Here's what I'm doing. You might think I'm mad. That's fine. It's about simplifying my life, finding out what's really necessary. And, well, let's face it, it's making room for new things. It's a point of change. I've posted a few more around the country to people I know I'm never going to see, and sort of rung them and said, look, I've sent you this invitation. Let me know what you think about it. So, it's about connecting with people, making it work. And I find that more satisfying and more likely to engage a good dialogue than doing things just simply online.
Yeah, the thing I like about this program that you've started, Ramsey, is that this is a way in which we make a practice very engaging and visceral in our lives. You'd made mention of New Year's resolutions that you make a few and most of us stop those, but you've found a way that is a really interesting way of refreshing it every month. And so you're not making this huge commitment of all of these things. You're just doing one. And it has a beginning and a duration and an end, and you move on to something else, but that refreshes what's underneath it, which is destabilizing those habits and getting some practice at letting go.
Exactly. I've had some interesting criticisms from people saying, well, why are you trying to be an ascetic? So I'm not trying to be an ascetic. And it sounds like you want to be a monk for a month or a year. So I said, no, it's not about being a monk at all. It's not that way of doing things, all or nothing something. It's taking one item from your life and allowing the process of giving up to teach you something, for you to teach yourself something.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it, is allowing that to teach you something.
I've actually set up each of the 12 months with an alternative replacement habit.
Oh, what are your alternatives? Let's hear that list.
Okay, January. Instead of sitting for longer than 30 minutes at a time, I was stretching and I was going for walks with a notepad and a pen. This month, instead of drinking coffee, I was trying to drink lemon tea, and I am trying to drink it. It's not a problem. It's just finding something that's palatable. So next month, when I'm not buying new things, I'm going to borrow books from the library. I'm going to create things, and I'm going to borrow and share. Again, that connects me with other people. So instead of just going out and buying something, if at all possible. I mean, I'm going to be I'm flexible about this. It's not an absolute. If I've bought something new once and I've failed, it's not like that at all. It's about the generality of it. Now, instead of gossiping, gossip is talking about someone who's not present. And of course, if I'm in a work context and you have to be considering an individual's capabilities within a work conversation, that's not gossip. My replacement habit is to offer appreciation to the person who I'm with at that moment. In May, when I'm not using the computer or the internet in the morning except to write, I'm going to think about writing a book. Now, my wife keeps telling me, Ramsey, you should write a book. You're a brilliant writer. You really ought to write a book. So I haven't thought what it's going to be on yet, but I'll consider how it's going to be to write a book. Instead of eating refined carbohydrates, I'm going to crunch on carrots, and I'm going to be baking more bread, particularly wholemeal breads. I do like homemade bread, I have to say. It's one of the great delights in life, I think. July, so Sudoku, I'm going to carry on writing that blinking book, which I haven't decided what's going to be. August, the following month, I'm going to be replacing sugar with fruit and vegetables. And when I'm instead of using a mobile phone for other than phone calls, I'm going to use my computer and print my diary daily. So, I mean, I walk along the street in Wellington and you almost bump into people every 10 meters who are looking at their mobile phone, and occasionally they glance up and just note and they walk around you. But it's like that, it's another way of disconnecting. It's like the kids who walk around with these huge headphones on saying, don't talk to me, don't look at me, I'm listening to, it's disconnecting. So I'm trying to connect there. In October, instead of going to cafes, I will make sandwiches at home and I shall cook more for myself. I mentioned instead of watching videos in November, I'll be playing dominoes, reading books and talking. So in December, the final month of the year, instead of using a computer, I'll be stretching, walking, writing, and doing more meditation. Those are my ideas. Now, on my blog, I'm actually inviting people who would like to look at this invitation, because I sent out this is a 6-page invitation explaining all this, to write to me. And I'm asking them that you can click on a link on, I think, the first blog post, and I'm inviting people to send me their postal address, and I will post a copy of the invitation to them. I've had a few so far, all in New Zealand, but no one from overseas yet. So it's not really discovered. I don't think the blog is discoverable yet on Google Analytics. So that's something to work on.
Well, for folks who are listening to the episode, we'll be linking both that. The website is ramseymargolis.com, and that's RamseyMargolis.com. And that's the Year of Living Without website. And also you can check out the Secular Buddhism New Zealand site. That's secularbuddhism.org.nz. I just wanted to say it that way. Normally it's Z for me. Ramsey, was there anything else you wanted to mention?
The only other thing to mention when you're talking about website is that I put a website up for the Wellington group at simplymeditation.org.nz, because I just thought that the group itself needed to have a bit of identity outside of the secularbuddhism.org.nz website, so it's kind of grown out of it in a sense.
And all of those sites will be linked on the episode page to this episode. Ramsey, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Ted. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to talking to you again in a few years, perhaps, about what's going on.
Thanks for listening. If you'd like to learn more about something you've heard in today's podcast, please come visit the SBA website at secularbuddhism.org, and you'll find an entire webpage devoted to this and every episode. Discussion about this episode can be found on the episode page itself, along with show notes. The music for The Secular Buddhist is used by permission from John Kaizen Neptune's CD, Steps in Time. Additional music is provided courtesy of Monty Levinson of Taihei Shakuhachi and Rodrigo Rodriguez. Their websites are also linked on the SBA site on the About Podcast Music page. Until next time, remember, every moment you have a choice. Make it the best you can. See you next time on The Secular Buddhist.